de volumen.
Upbox.
Tiene algo enorme para ti.
Si te ofrecen droga, te van a decir que se siente bien padre, que te vas a reír.
I don't know. I feel like the conversations like that, like those defensive talks that you have with your dad, like do you feel like maybe he's just like an old dog? And by old dog, I mean like you can't change his ways, like his mindset.
See, I don't truly believe that. Like, I feel like you can change someone's mindset, but like they have to want to change. Because maybe my dad just doesn't realize that literally the way he believes the things, the reason he believes the things is he believes it because that's what he was taught and that's how he was raised, and like that was it. But like for me, for example, and then I feel like the ways that they were raised carry into the ways that we were raised too. And but like there was one point in my life where I was like, I questioned it. I was like, well, why is this the only way? Like, there has to be other ways. I have friends who were raised differently. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just questions that start to form. And I feel like for my dad, like, those questions haven't started to form. Like, shit, like, or maybe they have. And, like, he just
Maybe just like
them.
doesn't care.
Or doesn't
enough.
care, right. But, like, I want to know why. Like, I want, like, tell me, like, I want to know why.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely, like, parents in general, especially, like, being, like, first gen, the parents themselves, like, they carry so much trauma, like, within them that, like, is carried on from, like, their parents. And now it's, like, being, like, charged up on us. And, you know, like, they have to also want to, like, fix themselves. But I don't even think they even are aware that, like, this is trauma. You know, like, yeah, like my parents are always like, yeah, like my parents would like beat the shit out of us with like a stick from the backyard. And they would like laugh and I'd be like, that's kind of fucked up, you know? And they're like, no, like that's just how we were raised. Like, you know, that we didn't do that shit again. Like we were fucking around. But I'm like, I don't know. Like that's not good.
Right.
You know?
Like, it doesn't sound like something that I want to go through because eventually I feel like you end up hating the person who's beating you.
Right. Like you hold like resentments and then like that's how like the family tree gets kind of like fucked up. Like, I don't know. It's just like too much. But I think it's good that you want to like kind of like change their mindset. I think that's a good step to start with.
I think, yeah, definitely. I'm also trying to like, I think change the way I communicate with my dad. Like maybe if we don't communicate well when it comes to words, like if he's like sitting down at the table and he's like eating, I'll just like come back and like put my hands on his shoulders and just be like, that's like me letting you know like whatever, like I'm here, or like that's my way of saying hi to you, you know? Because I have a lot of friends who, when I saw them come home and they saw their parents, they would shake their dad's hand. Like we don't do that, and we never did that, and that always I guess, I don't know, like amazed me. So it's just like like there's other people who do different things, and like they have different relationships with their parents. And so like when I realized that, I was like, I think when I saw that I was like 13. So like when I started having these thoughts about like my relationship with my dad, and I just like maybe starting to resent him for the way he raised us, it was very young. And I feel like I'm trying to change that whole perspective. Like now that I understand that it wasn't his fault, I don't want to take the blame off of him completely, but like, you know, but to some extent, he's just doing what he was taught and how he was raised. And like that's all he knows, because when he's not at home, he's at work. So like I feel like there's never any chance for him to have a conversation about anything else besides that and basically what's on TV.
Yeah.
And so like he's not in any environment that will teach him a new way of living.
Right.
Where like myself, like I feel like I put myself and I find myself in situations, even like with our relationship, like you and I feel like I've learned a lot about myself based on like conversations we've had. And like, just like I said, like that conversation we had about you telling me, well, my dad likes to listen or likes to talk about work, so I try to listen. And like I've tried to do that, you know, I've tried to be more open-minded to it, but then maybe like steering the conversation away from work eventually.
Right.
But yeah,
dude.
Basically, it's tough. But
It's definitely tough. I get it.
Because it's going to take more than, you know, that's like fucking 50 years of just conditioning, and that's how it was. So I'm trying to like unwind all that.
Yeah. And I know this is like true for a lot of people out there that your family in Mexico, like sometimes like they can get a little greedy, you know, like I know my family, we try to help our family in Mexico as much as we can. But this past time that I went, I really realized, because I didn't go with my siblings. Usually when I go with my sisters, like we stick together and no one really like talks to us. I don't know if that makes sense. Like no one really talks to us. We like keep to ourselves.
Like
but,
your cousins and everyone?
No, like me and my sisters.
But like in terms of like no one talks to you guys, your cousins?
No, like my cousins talk to
Or
us,
just
but like
people...
the adults.
Oh, okay.
Like the adults still see us as kids. So like we're in our mid-20s, you know? But yeah, that's pretty much it. But I went by myself. So like they were really talking to me and they were trying to figure out like, what do you do? Like this and that, right? Because I'm just like by myself at this point. And they would really sweet talk me and be like, oh, I'm really interested in like what it is that you do. And at the end of the conversation, it would always be like, oh, so can you help me like basically get my daughter papers? Or like, can you send money because I'm having a party later? Or like shit like that. And I'm just like, bro, like what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
Because, and that goes back to like my family, like my family does try to help them over there and like we send money and like we do all this stuff, but like they're always like more. Or like sometimes when we send money and like there's this one time that my dad growing up, my dad worked the fields with my uncle when he came here, and he worked the fields in the goal to have a house in Mexico, in the plot of land where my grandpa had his like terreno, whatever. And my dad was telling my grandma, like, I'm going to send you money. Can you tell so-and-so to build me my casa? And she was like, yeah, for sure. And dude, my dad worked long hours in the fields. He would go from state to state. And then we do have family in Florida. So like they ended up going to Florida for some field work. And then one of my uncles like called and he was like, oh, like you're over here saying like, yeah, like you got, ya tienes casa, like you know, you're building all this stuff and you're saying all this shit. But I just went over there and you don't have shit. And he was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, like your mom didn't build anything. She didn't contract anyone. Actually, she had new clothes like every single time that I saw her going to church. And my dad was like, what? She's like, there's no way. So he called her mom, my grandma, and was like, what the fuck is going on? And she was like, oh, like, and she got defensive. She's like, what do you mean? And then whatever, he left it at that. Didn't tell anyone. He stayed to work the rest of the season in the fields, and then he went to Mexico. Didn't tell anyone he was pulling up. He got there and he didn't see shit. He didn't see a single fucking brick built for like this room, this casa that like was supposed to be built. And he confronted his mom and he's like, what the fuck? Like, where is all the money? And he noticed like she had new pots, new pans, new everything, new clothes. And he was like, what the fuck? So they had a little like fight for like a very long time. And it's just like shit like that. Like you try to do good by your family and then like they fuck you over. Like that's not cool. And that's what I noticed when I went over there, because it was exactly that. You know, like I'm coming like en buen plan. I'm coming over here and trying to be with you guys and like try to help you guys. But like, then you do this shit, like, no. That kind of shit pisses me off. But yeah, my dad like didn't send my grandma money anymore. He sent it to his cousin and he built the house. Nice. And yeah, he still has it. But that had like a big falling out with like my dad and my grandma. But I mean, in the end, like they were cool and all that. But I don't even know. I don't even think she felt bad, like at all. I'm pretty sure she was like, well, I deserve this money. Like, you're my son. and you give me money.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. You know? Like, you owe me life, pretty much. And that's, like, fucked up. You know how there's a bunch of, like, MLMs, like, all that stuff, and there's always new ones popping up, and they're getting very creative with the way they market themselves to make it seem like it's not a pyramid scheme. And that just wouldn't have happened back then, but like now with like social media, especially the way they're branding it and how they're telling their employees to brand themselves, it's just getting so like crazy. And I found this old article from, I think it was 2016. John Oliver had a segment where he warned people, specifically Latinos, on Herbalife, because Herbalife very strategically targets Hispanic people, Latino people. And he had Jaime Camil. Do you know who that is? Jaime Camil, he's like this actor, Latino actor, famous for La Fe Más Bella. I don't know if you've seen that novela. He was also in Jane the Virgin. He's a very like comedy style
The dad of
actor.
Jane?
I don't know. I just know he's in the show. I don't know like
Older
his
dude?
role.
Older dude?
He's not like old. He's just a señor. Yeah, and he's just a funny guy. But I guess he brought on Jaime Camil to do like the Spanish version of like this warning of like, hey guys, like, you know, MLMs, like these things, they're a scam, you know, and you should steer clear because they prey on your dreams. They prey on your vision of like this so-called American dream, and they sell it to you so you can go and repeat the cycle. And just seeing like the article, like reading it and like seeing that he brought on this whole other actor, because Herbalife, how do I say, ropes you in. They have like a huge budget, so they rope you in with these like actors and like government officials that like merch them really hard because they have the money for it. And they're just like, oh, okay, like, and money buys anything. So like you can basically pay someone off to say like, yeah, hey, this works, this is a good product, this is whatever, and people will eat that shit up, you know? And I just think it's crazy.
It's scary. That's what that is. Like,
Yeah.
it's basically damn near, I mean, it's obviously a scam, but that shit's scary.
And like very newer ones that I feel I've seen is like Monat, for example. Like,
What is that?
Monat? Excuse me. Monat is like it's almost like a wellness brand. And they sell, I believe they sell like hair supplements and like hair care, I think skincare, just like stuff like that.
Is this that?
Yeah. And it's like, it's very preying on women. It's very much preying on like, I've seen a lot of Hispanic women try to like sell this. Also, Get Works, I think it's called. It Works? No, I think it's called It Works.
Works.
I remember years ago, like when I worked at the mall back in Rockford, my manager was like selling It Works. She was selling like these teas, these like detox teas that supposedly work and help you lose weight and like all this stuff. And she would be like merching it really hard. She'd be like, hey, this does this and that. I'm like, wait, do you even believe this? Like, do you believe this? And they're like, oh, she's like, I try it all the time. Like, I drink it all the time, this and that. And I'm just like, I don't think so. But I think that stopped very quickly after that. I think it's once you realize you're not really making any money off any of this.
No matter even if you sell, Because doesn't a portion of your sales go towards like the person who got you into it, right?
Yeah, but like I think it outweighs the sacrifice you make, because like for a lot of these places you have to pay like a first time fee or like a subscription fee and like all this stuff to even like start. And for them, it's like you're making an investment. You know, you spend this money and it's going to return to you like tenfold, and it never does. It never does. The only way it can really like multiply for you is if you're actually very good at roping other people in and training them into having them rope more people in. You know what I mean? I saw, because you can see these like on YouTube or whatever. There's like a bunch of videos of like, I know we talked about it last time. These people are called uplines. And these uplines are like your superior. This is the person that recruited you. And they basically train, quote unquote, train these like individuals to feel confident and to be able to sell and like all this stuff. And it's just not like, there's zero talk about the products themselves.
Yeah.
I never ever in these videos or these like conferences do I ever hear people speak about the product themselves. Just like they're all about the grind, like, you know, fuck these broke people like me and you, we're gonna be rich, like shit like that. And it's like, that's the only thing they're selling, like the talk. They're selling the dream. They're selling all this other shit, not the product themselves.
Because at the end of the day, the product doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It's them. But it's all honestly, if you're thinking about dropping out and you want to do something creative, just it's not as it's not how people depict it on TikTok. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like they just kind of glamorize out like the whole process of.
They love to give you the result. But
Yeah.
the actual process of even getting to a place where you can make somewhat okay money or consistently is extremely difficult.
Right. Like it took me 3 to 4 years to kind of make a living and
Off
you
of
know
what you
off
did.
of what I do, right? And like that's I cannot tell you how many times I stayed up at night, how many times like I was like, man, maybe I should have finished school. You know, how many times I questioned everything, like this is the right choice. Even to like to this day, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I'd rather be doing this. Even though it's like scary sometimes. But it's also because of the way that I feel like society has very much conditioned us to think that like you need this 9 to 5 and like you need this certain lifestyle.
Right.
Like I know from my life, at least financially, I just want to be debt free and have enough money to like just enjoy my life. You know, just travel, I guess, which isn't that much money. It's not as much money as you think it is, especially if you're like investing it in shit too. So there's like that whole other part of it. I don't know. I think it's very situational. If you want to drop
definitely.
out and you have a plan, go for it. But I think college isn't that bad of a place to be if you don't know what you want to do. Because you can meet some people.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
If anything, use it for networking more than
Right.
anything. Going back to when you were saying that at points for you, even till today, it is scary, was something that I kind of thought about the other day. And I know that we talk a lot about like imposter syndrome and how that makes us feel and how it's been making us feel ever since like we wanted to do stuff creatively, right? And I heard this quote from this girl that was basically twisting imposter syndrome to almost make it like a positive thing to look at it from in that perspective, which is if you have imposter syndrome, you feel scared. You know, you feel some type of way where it's like, oh, I'm not doing enough, or people are going to think that, you know, I ain't shit, all this kind of stuff. But you're uncomfortable throughout the entire like interaction of you thinking, oh, I have like this imposter syndrome, all this stuff, which is almost like a good thing because you know that things are changing and you're taking a step that is into the unknown, which is only good, you know? So that was like one way that I kind of changed perspectives, where it's like, okay, I have this imposter syndrome, but I know I'm in the right direction.
Okay, I see what you mean. I like that. I like that way too, because I feel like the way we were putting it was very
negative.
Yeah.
And that's like, I didn't feel that way up until now, after I kind of switched perspectives and how to like look at it. I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm not doing too bad, you know, because you won't know if you don't try. And when you try, I know that it feels scary, but you're uncomfortable, which is good. There's change.
Love that. I like that a lot. There was this I feel like I've always switched little like hobbies that I do and shit. Like I like to just try a lot of new things, and that's very much transitioned into like careers and stuff like too. I just don't see myself being in the same place for longer than like 3 to 5 years. You know what I mean? I get bored of it very quickly, because like once I get in there and I figure out how to fix stuff and like how to improve stuff, I'm kind of just like, or I'm out. You know what I mean? And I read a book that said like this is like a type of person. It's not necessarily bad or good, but like there's people who can stick to something, and like that's like what they love to do is just that one thing. And then there's people who actually enjoy other activities, like who like don't stick to one thing. Like they find some everyone's reason for moving on to the next thing is different. But I started looking at it as more of like a positive too, because I didn't like that about myself. I hate that I couldn't just like that's how I was learning how to play guitar. I couldn't just like stick to guitar. I had
Like
to.
you would feel like, oh, I'm not consistent, or like I'm not.
Right. Like once I accomplish the song or like whatever I'm trying to learn, I'll move on to like a next like hobby. Right. So, and I'm trying to like take that into my career. Like for example, I'm trying to go into flight school, and so like maybe I could do that for 5 years. But I was like, I don't know what I'm trying to do after that. You know. But yeah. Okay. So this is this is the conversation that I wanted to have with you actually.
This sounds very serious.
A little bit. It's a little bit serious. Not necessarily, but you'll see what I mean. So,
Okay.
And I've always enjoyed our conversations because you always challenge the way I think, right? Like you influence me a ton in that way. So last week there was a question, right? And it was, how do you feel about Hispanic people who use the N-word?
Oh yeah, I remember.
And you were very like straightforward with your answer, right? And so, but me, I was like, can't really talk about this right now for whatever reason. But honestly, I probably didn't think I had to take time to think about it, but I really had time to think about it because of your answer, right? Again, like this is the whole like you challenge my way of thinking.
Like you had a reflection where you're like, oh wait, like.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because I think that's like where we see like different perspectives, I guess, right? Because, for example, I said I have friends who say the N-word, right? But I didn't necessarily like. I don't agree with it, right? I don't agree that they use that word, and I don't use that word. But I think there's like there's definitely people who listen to this and like they either use the word, they used to use the word, or they feel some type of way about it, right? And me personally, I used to use that word, right? Not necessarily in conversation, but when it was like reciting like a rap song or something, right? And I'm gonna take a drink of this water. Okay, but I wanted to. I'm sorry, it's fucking bowl. It's
dry.
Harsh, yeah. But this is why I want to have this conversation with you, because I don't know if I necessarily agree with what you said, right? Because I don't necessarily think that my friends are shitty people because of that, because of that sole reason. But I want to talk about this because I think it's important. So, me being someone who, I don't know, like even the way I grew up, all my influences were, it was a bunch of black people, right? Like it was rappers, it was athletes, it was music. It was just like a bunch of different influences, right? And so like that language was it was just like
I understand it was
ingrained
very
in us at that point.
normalized.
Right, very normal. And the way we grew up, especially in our neighborhood too, we were surrounded with other people who use that word. So for us, it was kind of just like regular everyday vocabulary. And some point down the line, I realized that after talking to like people, to different people, like a lot of different people, and just like never being that comfortable with the word because of like the whole
The stigma.
right and the like the backstory behind it and everything and what it means to some people. And so I myself just stopped using it because I was like, okay, this is just not something I don't even feel comfortable saying it. I'm not gonna like force it, right? But a lot of my friends kept on using that word,
Right.
and I was really thinking about it over the past week because I was like, well, why, like, I don't think I've ever even asked them like why do they use that word. If anything,
Right.
I've always they are aware that I don't use that word and I don't like when they use the word. But like they're now, what's it called? They still use it, right? Because it's part of like their everyday just language. But it's hard for me to see them as like shitty people because of that, because they never really had let me not say that. They all their influences that they continue seeing to this day use that language, right? So like for TikTok, we know that our For You page is very much tailored to us, and it kind of speaks your language, right?
Right.
For them, all the media they see on social media is still that, because that's just who they are, right?
Right.
In that like specific, I don't even know, like the group of people, I guess. Like they're just like part of that. And then they still watch the same stuff. They still are involved and just like around people who use that word. So it's
Right.
still very normal to them. This doesn't make it right. That's like what I don't want to, I don't want to make, I don't want to excuse them for it, because
Right.
there is no excuse for it. It doesn't make it right. But I don't think that they're shitty people just because of that one reason. For example, people, let's take like a mother who lost her daughter to someone who was driving high because like they crashed into them, right? Like they probably hear me talk about driving high and they think I'm a shitty person.
Right.
But to you, like, am I a shitty person? Or like, do I think you're a shitty person because you necessarily do that? Like, not really.
No, but I also don't think the comparison is the best one.
Okay.
Because driving high and whatever and driving under the influence is like a completely different thing from like someone saying the N-word. You know what I mean? And I get what you're saying. And maybe the language I used last week was a bit harsh. Not that they're shitty people, but they're definitely ignorant, right? They just don't. Being ignorant isn't being like, you're fucking stupid. It's like you literally just don't know. Like you're unaware of this stuff. And I think what you were saying is valid about you grow up in certain environments that normalize this kind of like behavior and all that stuff. But I think now, today, in today's climate, today's day and age, I think it's been very progressive in the way of like now everyone just kind of, the majority of people agree like this is wrong. This isn't something that like we should be using. So like the knowledge is out there. People are aware, but they like still continue to do it. So I think it's just plain ignorance.
Like I said, I don't disagree that I don't think they should be using the word. And I find it tough for myself being in situations like that, because even though I've spoken up before, I'm just like, nah, at this point, I just don't speak up because the best I could do is lead by example, right? And it's hard for me to, I guess, like find that space to tell them again and again, because like over time it just becomes tiring. Like I'm not gonna parent someone, and it's
Right.
like their choice.
Right. But I think that goes back to how you feel. If you feel strongly about it and you tell them like, hey, bro, like that's not cool. And they get defensive, like, oh, like, fuck you, like this and that, then I don't know. That's like up to you if you want to like keep putting up with the ignorance, I guess. And I think I did say this a while ago, and I think you also kind of disagreed on the stance where I think you are who you hang out with to a certain extent. I get it. But it's just like stuff like that I feel like some people get it. Some people agree with that. And then on the other side, people are like, no, I wouldn't say like I'm exactly like that person because I hang out with them. I get it. But to me, that's my stance.
Right. I don't know. I feel like I have a bunch of different groups of friends who exhibit like different behavior, or even like people who, different phases of my life, basically, right? And so
Right.
that's that group of friends, and then I have like a group of friends from work, and then a group of friends from from like, all the other places.
Right.
And I don't know. For me, I like to surround myself with people who don't necessarily also have the same mentality as me, right? Because I think for me, I don't know. For me, I'm able to. I don't even know how to like put it into words, to be honest with you, but I'm able to see different sides of things, even though I agree with one. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't agree with that? Like you hang out with people who are like mainly just like you.
No, I would say I have a bunch of different friends around me with several different interests, backgrounds, like all that stuff. So I get about the like having different mentalities and like surrounding yourself with people, because if you surround with people that were just like you, I feel like that'd get kind of boring. But like, I mean, even in hindsight, like no person is the same as the other, but I agree that, like, whatever you're saying, that I get that you hang out with like different kinds of people. And going back to like you are who you hang out with, I think it's more about like the patterns and the social aspects of it sometimes to a certain extent. But yeah.
I don't know. For me, it's important. This is why I even brought it up in the first place, because it's important for me to have these conversations with someone who I genuinely like appreciate their opinion, because that's how I even got to like this mentality right now, is being open to like, if what you're saying is like, if I go home today, right, and I take what you say, and I'm like, okay, and I really start to question myself, like question why, let's say I still hang out with this group of people. In a way, like that might just be what I need. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like I like to again like ask you these like stuff like this and like get your opinion on stuff.
Right. Yeah, because I think also a lot of people hold on to, and I'm not saying that like this is you, but some people do hold on to, let's say, people that you grew up with. You only hung out with those people at that time because it was just proximity. You guys lived in the same place, went to the same school. And then everyone grew up, and now all these people have all these different interests and stuff. And a lot of people try to keep those groups around just because it was something that they had growing up, even though now you might not agree with like their life path, like even though that's like their life, that just doesn't fit with you. So sometimes holding on to those really old friendships, like you just kind of outgrow them, and it's okay to just let them go, but I think that goes for a lot of friend groups, and not just like people that you grew up with. Let's say like some work friends, you don't work there anymore, and you're just like, wait, like I kind of didn't even really like them like that, and then you just kind of move on. But I think they just work like that,
I get you. I get what you're coming from too. I don't know. I think like when you have different, like let's say like all views are put aside and you guys have the same interest, right? Like you really like to go running with someone, but then like 2 years later, that's like basically still what you're doing with them. It's just running, right? Is that bad to keep that? Like let's say if you were faster than them.
No, I mean, that just depends on the friendship too. Like, oh, we're just running buddies. Cool. Like, that's all we do. We run. But if you, I guess, develop a more in-depth friendship with them, where it's like more than just running, You know, I mean, you can have that too. You know, so I think it all just depends on how you see the friendship and like what it is to you. You know, like I used to have this friend group back when I worked at, it was a different store, and like they were really cool, and I was like, damn, like these are my friends, right? But looking back, all we did was go out and drink and just like fuck around pretty much. And then eventually like I left and they were still kind of doing that and stuff, but a lot of people ended up leaving. And I was just like, damn, like I don't even like doing that, honestly. And I was like, I have other interests and stuff like that. And we only really hung out because we worked together and we drank together. And then I was just like, like those weren't even the kind of friends I wanted to have. You know, I didn't even feel like they were true friends. They're just people I was around. So it's just situational. And when I went to middle school, I pretty much didn't see a lot of the kids that I went to elementary school. And then the ones that I would see were like Spanish speaking. Like they were Mexican. I was like, fuck yeah. And like all my friends that I made were like Latino. And I was like, wow, like this is what it feels like, you know? And since then, growing up, like I never had like white friends, like ever, because I didn't make friends with any of the kids in elementary. So yeah.
Damn, dude. I can't imagine how much of an impact those four, right? Like those 4 moves had on the rest of your life. Like, what if you had stayed at that one school for those 5 years?
I don't know, dude.
And then the rest.
Yeah, but who knows?
That's
I
crazy.
feel like I've always been put into situations where there's a lot of people and I just have to like fight my way to know how to interact with them, you know? So I think that went for like school and then I guess also work because I worked retail. So.
Right.
Do you think anything from your childhood, from like your very formative years, like certain things impacted kind of how you are and who you are now?
I mean, I would definitely say yes. I'm trying to think of like a specific moment that I remember, if I can, from that young. Man, that's tough. You can remember memories from that far back?
Sometimes, like, it's just very certain ones and it's like the ones that I know did have an impact, like me moving and stuff like that.
Right.
Some people are like, oh, like you're a kid, like this and that. These are your very formative years. I think it's between like 4 and 6 or like 6 to 10 or some shit like that, where I think it's 2 and 8 actually. I think it's between those years where a lot of the patterns and all that stuff you pick up and that impacts the entire rest of your life. So even if it was something small like that, there's videos of like small stuff impacting literal babies and they carry that throughout their entire lives. So
I think the more I think about it, and I'm sure this is something that I've talked about before too, but being so close to my cousins and just seeing my family all the time, like just not even my close family, but like, you know, my cousins and their cousins and shit, just around a lot of people all the time. Because when my family moved here, they all moved specifically to Chicago, and then they started to spread
branch
out.
away.
Right. And even my dad's family, everybody, my mom's and my dad's family all moved here to Chicago. So like we were just always all together all the time. And I think I grew very accustomed to that. And just like enjoy being around family, and I don't know, just very communal, I guess.
Yeah.
I like surrounding myself with a lot of people, and then my parents just always having us out the house, whether it was playing sports, just some sort of activity. We would never be in the house except for like I only remember watching 2 hours of TV at the most every single night. And that was something else that my parents got us used to, was watching TV and shit at night. And then that was something you did before sleeping.
Damn. So what's your purpose in life, or what do you think yours is?
So I told my therapist this. I was like, I think I enjoy really helping people, and to an extent, she was like, I think she had asked me like basically, what is your purpose? Like, what is it that you? Who are you? And I'm like, I don't know. I just enjoy really helping people, and that's just what I like to do. But then we were going back and forth, and she was saying that like, well, that isn't really like just the focus isn't on you. The focus is on other people still, right? Because I'm trying to help other people. But the more I think about it, I can't think of a better answer because I don't know. That genuinely is something that I just enjoy doing. And funny enough, my name means healer. So I just think like there's just been a lot of small coincidences that just like lined up to me being who I am, and just me genuinely enjoying what I like to do, which is to help people.
Oh, I think that's really nice. I think that's beautiful. And I'm glad that you're almost awakening that idea of yourself, you know? Very cool.
Thank you.
Let's see. My purpose. I think my purpose in life is, I don't know. I really like storytelling. And I think my purpose is just to tell a story. I don't know whose. I don't know if it's mine. I don't know if it's someone else's. But I know that there's a message that is going to get out there with me. I don't know what it is or what. And I don't know if I'm in the process right now of living that out. But that's, I think, what's happening.
That's amazing. I love that answer.
Thanks.
Do you remember a year ago? Like, so when we first started this, it was about a year ago. Do you remember like basically where you were in life and like what your current goals were? Like how different they are now a year later?
When we first
previous podcast, right? Like before the podcast started, what were you up to? You had just graduated?
So before are we going like 2020? Where are we going? Are we going like me live by myself?
Did we start this in 2020?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Did.
I think we
I'm
did.
pretty
Wow.
sure. But I was still living on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or maybe it was 2019. I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure it's 2020 because we haven't hit a year yet.
Right.
You know, but I amaze myself because I don't think back then I would have thought that I would be here today, doing this. I didn't know the potential this could possibly have. And I think just looking back, I feel very blessed, you know?
That's awesome.
Back then I was living by myself and working one job, like paycheck to paycheck. But I was happy because I had everything that I worked for on my own, you know? So it was crazy.
Yeah, you used to have vans, right?
Ew, bitch, yeah. That's a story for another day. I always say that though. Any weed brands / companies you like or dislike?
I really fuck with Raw. I think the guy who runs it is an amazing person. All his charity work that he does, all the organizations that he's helped and opened up himself, it's really admirable. And I would like to eventually work with him on some charity work and just like collab with the company. Like being sponsored by Raw is definitely a goal.
It's something we're gonna do.
Yeah.
We're just not there yet. It's gonna happen though.
So definitely Raw.
I would say, what's Jonah Hill's thing?
Jonah Hill or Seth Rogen?
No, or Seth Rogen. Yeah, sorry.
House
You
Plant?
pointed at something and I was like, what do
The
you...
Blazy Susans.
Oh,
They do some cool
yeah.
shit, too.
Yeah, I do. They do some cool shit. I would also want to do shit with them. But yeah, Seth Rogen, his company.
Houseplant, I think it's called.
And I've never seen anyone do shit like he's doing. He's doing really nice, very curated home things that like home decor and stuff like that I've just never seen. Like the cannabis industry shift into that. And I think he's a very early pioneer of that stuff like that. And I would very much want to do something similar, you know, kind of go into home decor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The ashtray, like table lighter, all that shit, love.
Yeah.
Absolutely love.
I don't know, like to me taking care of myself is like having my hobbies and like having things that I enjoy doing that I don't necessarily need to rely on someone else to give me like that happiness.
Yeah.
And so I think for my kids to see me have hobbies is something that I want to
Instill in them.
because I don't think I see that from my parents. Which is maybe it's just me overthinking it, but I guess saddens me a little bit to think that maybe there are things that they want to do but they feel like they can't hobby wise because like it takes too much time. Like if my dad's like, I want to start this, but I can't because I have work. But he could do that on the weekends. You know what I mean? Or like just like it doesn't have to be an everyday thing. You could do like once a week.
Right.
But maybe my parents are happy where they are and like don't really care for hobbies. Maybe some people don't really care for hobbies. And that's like equally as okay. But for me, I would want to have my own hobbies so that eventually my kids can like have hobbies and like love what they do, I guess.
Right. Enjoy their own lives better, you know, without you.
Right.
Yeah. And what was I gonna say? Oh, I think the explanation that you were given, I don't know where you saw it with the explanation you had, but I think right now the structure that a lot of at least our parents have, like immigrant parents have, it's not to put themselves first, but to put like the whole family first. So like you were saying that your dad was like, well, I can't go and enjoy and do this that I would probably really like doing because I have to go work because I have to provide for this family.
Right.
And that's kind of like the same thing with like moms and stuff. So right now my dad works and my mom works. They very rarely see each other, just like maybe one day on the weekend and stuff. And it saddens me to think that that's how they feel like that's just what it is, like just work and like just providing for the children, not even like with helping each other, you know, it's like just for the kids. So it's tough to see. Sorry, I'm like really high.
No, you're
So I'm like, the fuck.
This is the scary thing too, is like going back to what we were saying, is that I don't know if this mentality that I have about our parents caring, like they do that because like they think they should be, like my dad is the provider because he believes he should be the provider.
Right.
But he's doing it more for the community rather than like himself, right? So he's putting the community, like as in the community being my family, in front of him.
Yeah.
Like, is that a bad mindset to have?
It's not, but I think going on what you were saying, I don't know how this is going to affect like future generations just because we're kind of like the first ones breaking out of that and like realizing that there's other ways to go and like other ways to go about things. So I don't really know if I'm going to know any of like the after effects of like that kind of mindset breaking and then like whatever. So I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think what was I gonna say? I don't think it's a bad thing. It definitely works, but I don't know if like you would want that to be the example that you want to like go and pass down, you know, because like the kids are going to go and probably see that model after their parents and stuff. So like I said, I don't think it's a bad thing, but if you want your kids to have like a better life and stuff like that, I think changing the mindset, like you were saying about having hobbies and whatever, to make your children have like a healthier like mental stability, I think that would be good. You know, like I think that's what you would want to do. Did that make sense?
It did make sense.
Okay.
But I think that was my initial worry, was that I don't know if my mindset of changing that, that pattern, like that parents and just like, you know, there's a different role for each person in the partnership, whatever. But like changing that pattern, is that an Americanized way of thinking, because it's no longer tribal or like community based. It's solely on yourself. You're just thinking about yourself now and like your own mental being.
I think it really is. I think that is a very like American way of thinking. And also, I don't want to say it's good or it's bad, but it's just kind of like the way it is here, and everyone's kind of like for themselves. And yeah, I mean, it's like it's a loss, you know, but I don't think that's going on in other places where like it's very common to have a community based kind of like family structure where it's like a bunch of you and you guys all look out for each other. Because I think that's common in like a lot of countries,
Right.
you know, but it's just here. It's, I think it's all just a result of like capitalism. So yeah. Hold on. I can't even read. Okay, so this next one is from Enrique. Is it hard to connect with the family when you go to visit them outside of America? For him, it was hard to do that because the culture and how we were raised was completely different.
I don't think it's hard. It was hard for me to connect. Like I definitely felt this connection and like I felt welcomed and it was very warm. But what made it hard for me was the Spanish because I was so embarrassed of my own Spanish, and then because I know how my family is too, and like it's just the way they talk. As in like if I'm saying something right, and I don't say something like in the perfect Spanish, whatever it is, like dialect, whatever the fuck it is. I don't say it correctly. They'll say something like how can I say this?
Like in a judgy way.
Yeah, it's a judgy way, but it's like I'm trying to think of like the wordage that they use. Whatever the wordage is used, basically it's in a judgy way, and
Like teasing you?
in a way.
Okay.
And I think like that's what I was like worried about when I was over there, and that's what made it hard to like ask some questions. Because when I was with my grandma, like I had her by myself, and I was like, ooh, like what questions I want to ask.
Yeah.
Like how my dad grew up, like how he was as a kid. If she sees any like similarities between like us two, like shit like that. But I couldn't come up with the right words to even use.
Right.
You know, and like I was just like in my head, like I don't even think she's gonna understand the question that I'm asking her for the answer that I'm looking for. So
You felt like that held you back
Oh,
from
definitely.
asking those questions?
Right. And so like like my Spanish isn't bad. It's just not. It's not good. It's not perfect. But I get embarrassed because like to you, I can't even speak Spanish to you.
Why?
Just because I know you. Anyone that I personally know, I can't speak Spanish to them because I'm just like, that's like a very personal side to me because I don't open up that side a lot. And so like, but with complete strangers, I could talk Spanish and I feel like I talk fine. Because I don't know, there's no expectations.
Okay.
You know?
See, that makes a lot of sense. The expectations. Dude, like, what do you got to lose?
Which is
like,
exactly
what's
that's the
gonna happen?
mindset. That's the mindset I'm trying to get out of.
Like,
is
especially like you were
expectations.
saying, that's not the way you open up to people that you know. I guess like people that you would want to be like talking with or whatever. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, you know, it's almost like they wouldn't be mean to you. I don't think like they would be understanding.
I get you.
You
Like,
know?
I completely get you, and I get like that's the mindset I should have, but it's still like I don't know. I'm working on it.
Do it
Eventually, though. Because I was thinking the other day, I remember you had suggested this like a long time ago in the beginning of the pod. You were like, oh, we should do a full episode in Spanish.
That's what I was just gonna say right now. Like, oh, okay, you have to like practice so we can do the full episode in Spanish.
Fuck. See, I don't know if I'd be down. But then you know the idea I was telling you about I was talking to you earlier.
Yeah.
I was like, what if one of the episodes I had one of my mom on? And
Yeah.
I would have to talk to her how I talk to her.
Spanish, yeah.
Right. And I don't know.
Well, you wouldn't want people to see that.
I feel
The
like
conversation would be meaningful.
in an American first gen household where like the parents are immigrants and like we come and we're like the language, we're learning two languages at once. So I picked up English a lot more naturally than I did Spanish. My parents spoke to me in Spanish. They still speak to me in Spanish like all the time. But I definitely listened more to the English and like all my influences were in English and like all that shit. And the Spanish that I have at home is like Spanglish. Like I have certain words that I say to my parents because they understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so like and then obviously this is again like me worrying about what other people are gonna like think about like my Spanish. And like there's just gonna be words that I guess I don't want to explain. You know what I mean?
Because you kind of switched them up because they make sense.
To me and my family.
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh, like what?
That's what I'm trying to think of right now, but I don't know.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna expose my friend. But I remember this one time she was telling me this story about her and her little sister and how she would just have like all these made up words that are like Spanish, but like they're not words. Like a bucket, she would say like la buqueta. Or it's like, no, like that's not what it is. But she would have like words like that. So that's what I was like thinking when you were saying that.
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I knew someone who said instead of cuchara, it was puchara.
Oh,
Like
what the
that's
fuck?
like the whole family said that. Just because I
Oh.
guess one kid picked it up and then they all just used it.
Okay. So this is I guess a question for the public. So where I'm from, like my parents, like where they're from, so they would always call ponytail a chonga. So it would be a chonga and a bun a molote. And
never heard of that.
yeah, and I didn't know other people didn't know what that was. So until I went to college and this girl like told me, oh, we call it this. And I'm like, what? Like I've never heard that before. But I was surprised that she had never heard like molote and stuff like that, because I know a lot of people say like the ponytail is like a cola or just stuff like that.
I thought chonga meant what did I think it meant? I think it actually was ponytails. Either ponytails or like the
Like
rubber
pigtails?
band. Yeah, maybe pigtails. There we go.
Like
I
the
don't
two of them? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's just so many different pronunciations and stuff, like even in Spanish, that I'm just like, what the fuck? Okay. Next question is from... Wait, did I even answer the question?
I don't think you did.
Like, is it hard to connect with family outside? Okay. Okay, so for my part of the question, I would say it is kind of hard to connect with the family that I go see in Mexico, just because, and not because of like the Spanish or anything, I guess, like, I think it's just like the stuff we do or our mannerisms that, it sucks. And I know it's like corny because everyone says it, but like when you go over there, like you're not Mexican, you know, and you come here and you're not like American. So it's kind of like you're always like in this what the fuck in between, because you go over there and they're always like, oh, like güera, or like they just say all this other stuff. But like no matter what I do, like I don't know what it is, as much as I try to like talk to them and like hang out with them and whatever, like they always have that like, you're not from here, like you're not authentic, like no matter how much you try to I
don't even think you're trying. Just how,
Yeah,
just no
exactly,
matter how
like-
much you are.
right. And it's like it's never going to be enough, and I feel like it's just there's never any true equality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, so then that goes back into something that I feel like is very common in the community, is weaponizing your children. And maybe not even in the community, but like a large spread on like toxic parents that use their kids to get back at like significant others, at families. And it's like they don't have any reason. The kids like no tienen la culpa. You're over here telling your kid, go and tell your prima this, and go and tell your dad that blah blah blah. And it's like, why? And then the kids grow up and they're gonna be mad at you that you made them go and do this. Like that's where resentment lies, and that's where it's created and it's formed. And then they grow up and you wonder why they don't fuck with you, you know?
Right.
You like fucked up their childhood. You basically created problems between you and like other like these kids, between them and like other people, and they didn't even know what was going on in the first place. So I just think it's something that's super shitty, and I just see it a lot.
Man. Do you think that ties into, maybe not so much, but have you ever seen Spanglish? So really good movie. It's actually an Adam Sandler movie, but I think it's an Adam Sandler movie that I think you'd really enjoy. So the daughter in the movie is used as a translator the entire movie for the mom, because the mom can't speak English, so she uses her daughter, and her daughter is put into these situations where she has to apologize to the person she's speaking to before she can translate. And like, would you say that's like kind of in the same realm?
I would think so, just because there's some conversations that like you shouldn't be trying to have through a child, you know, especially also through like, I think I see it a lot too with like divorced parents where, oh, well, go tell your dad this, go tell your mom that. And it's like, you are like, what the fuck? Like, this isn't how I feel. This is how they feel. But if I don't tell them, they're going to be pressed because I didn't. And it just creates this whole weird thing where it's like, they shouldn't have to be in the middle of any of it, you know?
The way I currently live.
I think it'll be really interesting to see a year from now, you still having a routine, just having it be completely different.
Dude,
maybe
that'd be sick.
and maybe in a different setting, maybe different things with different people. Like, I'm excited.
That'd be sick. I love routine, and I think having a different routine is what keeps me going, if that makes sense. Because I hate getting stuck into the same routine. Oh my god, that shit's so boring to me. If I do shit for more than like 2 months, if I'm like one routine for more than 2 months, I get very bored and almost like paralyzed. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm not doing enough, or I need to do something different, or else I just feel stuck and I'm not moving on in my personal life.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and end this episode. Again, I just want to say thank you again to everybody who has ever supported us. It means the absolute world. This has been amazing. It's so amazing, so fun, and I can't speak right now. I'm terrible at doing stuff like this. Just thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, Jackie, thank you for being who you are.
Thanks.
You know, this has been amazing. And like I said on Discord, there's no one I would rather have done this with. So
Thank you.
I appreciate all the time.
All right.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Cool.